Alright, welcome to this session of the tutorial. Alright, continuing on, now that I've gone over just about all of these other documents that you see down here, you see me pointing out with my cursor, the invoice, the report, the documentation, the travel, the timesheet, and each of those applying to each quarter. I'm going to come back and look a little more at this cumulative budget spreadsheet. So I'm on that now. Here you can see at the top. At the top here is just a few instructions, basically saying what I've said before, that at the beginning of a contract you got to fill in all your red and orange text and numbers and so on. Okay, I'm going to scroll down at the bottom. So as you go through and are filling out your different numbers, again, most of those are going to be invoice, although some of them in your travel and timesheet documents that are going to fill in some portions of the invoice for you. As you fill those in, they're going to fill in these numbers for you throughout your quarters. Quarter 1, 2, 3, 4, on down the line. Fill in these numbers. So the numbers you're seeing displayed here are just where I put in some example numbers in our invoices. And of course, some of our categories, for example, our admin person for personnel, I didn't put anything in federal. I put in some in match, but just as I've been working on this, those are just the example numbers that I've ended up with. It's going to total for each column all of your numbers down here. So you're going to have your total right here for your Fed personnel manager, or whatever title you put in there in that first one. I'm going to put total that has been spent thus far, and or total match, whatever it may be. And then right here it's going to put your total federal funds and match. Once in a while I find I need that figure, the funds and match. So that would apply here for your personnel program manager, project coordinator. It would be here, and again you can see if you encounter a bunch of hashtags, it just means it's not quite fitting in there. So you need to either make your text a little smaller or widen the column. As I mentioned before, you just got to, if you're going to widen the column, make sure looking up above or down below. There's nothing down below in this case. Whatever you're widening is not negatively affecting somewhere else or pushing you off onto a second page if you're printing, which of course this page typically would not be printed, or would have to be printed on multiple pages anyway. So that just shows your total again for federal funds and match for a given category, and that's why you kind of see it on every other one displayed there. And if there's nothing listed, for example, I haven't put anything in this other personnel category, then it just appears as a dash there, typically. Dropping further down, this is my remaining funds available line. So it's going to show me how much is left in a given bucket if I've already, based on what I've already spent. So once I've emptied that bucket by spending it all, then I'll end up with this 0, which will display as a dash typically if I've got this set to the accounting format, which it is in most places. So ideally, as I understand it, you want your federal funds at the end of the contract to end in 0. You want to spend all the allotted money right down to 0 in an ideal situation. If you go over the expenditure, then there will a number appear how much you've gone over by, but it'll be in parentheses. Now, of course, if that's in match and you see parentheses, that just means you have put in more in match than you were assigned to do through the contract or requested to do. So, of course, I just had the number 4,000 typed in there, and with this much, this is a huge amount of match, unusually high, that I just happen to have typed in here at the moment. Then it's going to show that's how much more you contributed to the project. So of course with match, that's I guess at least in some degree a good thing, demonstrating your organizational contribution to the project. So for match, we like to see parentheses there, but for federal buckets, your federal amount, you would not want to see that unless you have a specific plan, perhaps in coordination with EPD, where you're taking a little bit from another bucket and supplementing and overspending in one bucket, and taking it from another where you're not going to spend it all. But again, that's something I'm sure EPD would emphasize should only be done in kind of in coordination or communication with them, and there may be further parameters about how much, to what degree that can be done, certain percentages, limitations, and so on. So anyway, again, these numbers are in green, so they'll auto-populate. The green, it's just a little bit different color green here as it's overlaid with purple. We have kind of our sub-buckets for personnel, and then the darker purple denotes it's kind of a grand total for the previous sub-buckets in personnel in this case. And of course, we can see that on down the line here for our supplies, all our supplies sub-buckets, supplies 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 I've created with the grand total there again in the darker purple, and that holds true up here. The dark purple just demonstrates it's kind of a total that's automatically going to fill in. And that's why these numbers are also green here, whereas these orange ones, again, you've got to fill in at the beginning of a contract. Continuing over here to the far end of our spreadsheet, I guess this would be the far right end, you might say. These numbers here in these columns are all going to total up here where appropriate. So the total that I've spent in federal is going to add up for me right here. And then, of course, the total I spend in match is right here. This column here is going to be my federal to date, so it's going to keep adding that as I keep spending money through each one, federal to date. Now I can see I might have to double check my formula there, because once you have your initial figure in there, it should be at least that much from the top all the way down. So I may have a little tweaking to do on my formula, but hopefully in the version you get of this template, that will be addressed, and you will be able to effectively see your federal to date in that column. Same here with the match to date. Then these numbers that are in red are your original estimate for that quarter for federal here, and match over here. And so grand total for that quarter, you'll need to enter those numbers in based on the paperwork you get from EPD. Then the project total, as I've to some degree talked about before, is your federal and match together for each quarter listed there, and cumulative to date is what's going to be in here. And of course that number, it's populating that number, adding up all, you can see all the different appropriate columns there, with every effort I've made not to make any duplication, where the numbers, you know, it's just taking the grand total, like for example of my other category without counting all the other sub buckets, just the grand total other bucket, you know, or take the sub buckets without the grand total. But anyway, I think you get the idea there. So adding that project cumulative total to date, because of course that figure is needed to go into the report. And you know, down here at the report, that number is going to need to appear at the bottom. See right here, that's going to be your grand total. Well, that would be match, but for federal right there. And then of course those numbers also fill in right here, and there's your grand total, project total. And so it's that's part of where those figures are needed, but they're displayed here as well for reference. But as you can see, you may have noticed, I'm going to go back to the report a minute. Here it's actually adding up those numbers here from this spreadsheet. Going back down here, See, it's just adding up the sum of all the other categories here. So as a precaution and just to verify all the formulas, equations throughout this, these different documents are aligning, I've kind of created some little table down here, cross-reference information. And so I say the following fields should match at the end of each quarter. So this is for internal use only, that should say. The quarter formulas will have to be updated each quarter to match that quarter's report and invoice. So what I'm meaning by that is if you click here on where these different numbers appear, then you can see that they're populating from, well, here, I'll click this as a better example. Click right here. It's quarter one. So if I wanted this to show me quarter two, I just need to go in there, highlight quarter two, and hit enter, and then it's going to show me quarter two. So I'll change that back to quarter one. So at the end, after you've completed all your invoice and all your documentation for a given quarter, I recommend going back and completing this table simply by changing each formula here to pull in from the invoice for that quarter. Let's say you were doing quarter two. You just change that right there to quarter two. And then you would do that for throughout this table. Of course, here on the top line, you won't need to do that because these numbers are all from this spreadsheet right here, the cumulative budget spreadsheet. And so it's going to take the figures for each category for our quarterly total, for our federal amount, and these numbers should all line up. Now, of course, I just changed that one to quarter two, so I need to change it to back to quarter one because we're comparing quarter one at the moment. These numbers all should line up where it's all a particular color. So the blue column here should line up, the pink column should line up, yellow, purple, orange all line up, green line up, and so on. So that shows me that the cumulative figure on the cumulative budget for what I'm spending this quarter in federal amount lines up with the main itemized invoice. I can maybe make that text a little smaller so we can see there that whole bit of text. Then on my breakdown invoice, where it breaks it down into federal as well as match, see that amount, then my quarterly report, and if it's relevant, the final report information, which is only relevant over here for my cumulative totals. So again, you see the match, then cumulative total for all that I've spent so far in the project, looking to see those match up, as well as the in-kind or match category on my cumulative budget, and my report, my final report. Then the whole project, both federal and match for the quarter and for the entire project so far, cumulative federal and match for the entire cumulative project so far. So this allows me to verify that my spreadsheets are all working properly and that they're picking up the right information in each place. So it's just kind of a precaution or way to double check to make sure the numbers have all been done properly. And if they don't line up, then I need to go to each of those spreadsheets and kind of track down, is there perhaps a hidden column or hidden row that on one of the spreadsheets that's pulling in some more information? Have I typed over a formula somewhere that I shouldn't have by accident? But anyway, I just need to find out the information, track down where there is an error. Because the whole goal of this workbook is so there's congruency throughout all these reports and to address incongruency errors. But of course, those can occur in spreadsheets, not just due to human error, but due to spreadsheet oversights or whatever, our spreadsheet issues. So anyway, that's a way to minimize that. So, okay, kind of a further way I've taken that principle, just looking here within this spreadsheet, is this figure here is the total of each category throughout the life of the contract added up, and this is the total of each quarter total, federal, lined up here. So these numbers should always line up, and if they don't, you've got to go back and kind of try and find out why. Is there somewhere in a column some number is being picked up in one place with my category or bucket totals, but is not being picked up with the whole quarter total, which yeah, it would be hard to understand how that could happen, but I have had ways in which that seemed to be the case and these numbers didn't match up, and I had to track down some little error, usually some place where a spreadsheet formula was not picking up all the cells it was supposed to. Hopefully I've totally resolved that with this template now, but if you tweak the template at all or hide columns or delete columns or rows, things like that can happen. So anyway, of course, this number here should line up with what you see right here in this project total number right here. And of course, it should also typically line up with this number right here as you go through the life of your project. Now, at the moment, I think it may be, well, this number may not. I take that back because I think this is building up your cumulative. So this one won't necessarily line up with these because this is an adding up of all your cumulatives. And so actually that number I think doesn't even need to be there now that I think about it. It's just adding this column here, but it would be an irrelevant number to add up all your cumulatives as you went along, cumulative to date. But anyway, that's an aside. This number here, your project total, and these numbers here should line up. So in fact, I think I'll eliminate the blue backfill there, so that's a little bit clearer, and even just delete that. All right. Well, I think that's basically all that I needed to go over here on finalizing the cumulative spreadsheet. There are a few more things that I just want to kind of go back and mention some tweaks that I've made since I've done a few more of the tutorials and other final notes. Looking, for example, at the spreadsheet. Here, I'm going to adjust the view for the moment to kind of make it a little bit easier to follow now that I'm in the page layout view. We have here our spreadsheet for our first person. I'm now tweaked it so that this field is pulling their title here, the title that's been created for them within this project, whether they're program manager, implementation manager, admin person, whatever. And so it's pulling that in from the cumulative spreadsheet. Go back and take a look at that from right here. Whatever you put in here in this first column, it's going to fill in right here. Then their name will again auto-populate in here. Then their title appears here, their title within your organization. So that is going to again draw from whatever you type here next to their name. And so it will take that data, that title, and fill it in here. So this will be their title within your organization. This up here will be their title within that particular 319 contract. I've also come down here and just added another line here at the bottom of each one to make it clear that this is the match value. This number, the value of all their work, of all their hours, in this case it amounts to 288 hours on this particular page, the value of all their work is the match value. So I wrote in the words time match value, as in the amount of working time, employee time, the value of it in terms of match or in kind towards the project is this figure right here. Now, of course, this is for page 1 only. If you had so much that you needed it to go over onto page 2, then this here would be your time match value for page 1 and 2, and that's why I wrote that there. And that's going to total up page 1 and 2. Most of the time you won't even need this second page, and you'll simply be printing just this page to submit to EPD. And so you know, it says page 1, but most of the time there will only be one page per employee. Particularly if you've got multiple 319s going at a time. But at least that is the case in our organization. Check with your own director or person who's has experience managing 319s in your own organization if you're not with Golden Triangle. And of course, if for any reason you in your organization or your particular arrangement with EPD are using this amount for the federal category, then you would need to change that and put time federal value in there. I don't know of any case where that's occurred in our organization, but you would need to do that if to make that change if for any reason you were using the time from your timesheet towards federal. But again, in our case, best of my understanding, all of the time that is listed on timesheets goes into the match category. And so on. You can see that line here with the other personnel timesheets for this individual, and finally for the admin person here on the third page. There it is. Okay. I do want to mention one other kind of quirk related to Excel that you might encounter. And to demonstrate that, I came across a case of it in my 7th quarter report. To navigate around this, for experienced Excel users will know, you can use either just click these buttons to get around to all the different spreadsheets, but a faster way, especially if you've got one somewhere in the middle, is to right click and then it will show you all the sheets, and you can just go scroll down till you get to write the one you want. I want report quarter 7 in this case. It will take me right there. Alright, we can see here in our other category a little issue with Excel where it's not displaying the data that should be here. It's displaying the formula. I'm telling it it should be putting whatever is in D88, which is up here, right here, but instead it's displaying the formula. Now there's nothing in D88 because it's drawing that bit of text from the invoice, and there's nothing in that spot on the invoice, as you can see up here, cell B105, and so it just puts a 0 there, which is fine. I just have that field there just in case by chance you have another category and you just need another space to put in one more item within your other bucket. So if you encounter that where it's showing the formula instead of the data, you see an equal sign and then a cell number. A way that I have learned to address that is to pull up Excel's find and replace feature. I believe that's Control F, And I don't know if you can see this on the tutorials. I've noticed that sometimes on the tutorial video recording, when a little window pops up somewhere, the video is not recording it. So if you're not seeing the find and replace window that I am kind of waving my cursor around, then you'll just have to bear with my audio description here. So once that little window pops up, by pressing Control F, select the replace feature, and you're simply going to type in the equals sign where it says find what. I'm going to put in my equal sign and then replace with, and I'm just going to put another equal sign. And then I'll click the word replace. And you might have just seen over here in this cell, it just changed so that the formula doesn't appear anymore. It's the 0, which it's showing what's exactly in its source cell, D88, which is up here. So somehow by doing that find and replace, telling it to replace an equals with an equals, it kind of wakes it up. And so if you encounter a little formula somewhere sitting in a cell and it's not showing the appropriate text or number there, just tell it to find and replace an equals with an equals there in that cell, or you can do it for the whole document if you want, if you've got a lot of them. But anyway, that's just a little heads up on that. Also up here you can see we have quarter. This report is for quarter $7, and this is actually quarter 7. It's simply that particular cell in Excel is displaying in the probably the currency or accounting. Turns out it's the accounting format. Once in a while there's just an error when I created the template by accident, somehow ended up with the wrong format there. That simply needs to be changed to either general, or I suppose the person could use the text format down here. But anyway, general, simply change that to general, and there you go. You get your quarter 7. I guess I could center it. There we go. Okay. While I'm here on the report page, I do want to just emphasize that this spreadsheet is simply producing for you the financial portion of the quarterly report. This will need to be put with the task list portion of each quarterly report. So whoever's the lead person for that 319 would typically put together that task list in Microsoft Word, and then the documents could just be printed off and then scanned in together for submission to EPD. The printing off the task list of what's been done for the task for that quarter, and then print it off, and then again you would also print off this spreadsheet to go with it. So just want to emphasize that. I have put in, well, at the moment it's not in this particular report, but you will hopefully see in your template. Come back here to report quarter 1. This page, the minority business enterprise and women business enterprise utilization form right here, which in our organization typically we have is blank. We leave that. We have to include that form. I can see that I've got a little bit of tweaking here with that bit of text there. Maybe I just need to tell it to wrap text. But anyway, hopefully in the template you receive, you'll see that page will print off for you, as it's necessary to be submitted, my understanding, with the each quarterly report. All right, I believe that's all I have for now to go over. Thank you for your forbearance with me in this listening to this tutorial. I hope that it's been helpful. I apologize for times not having a totally sterile audio environment, and a few background noises, and my voice sometimes droning on a bit and not being the most exciting. But I hope this is helpful. It's possible I'll make some more tweaks and add one more tutorial session onto this. But for the moment, I anticipate that this may be the last of the tutorial. My name is Andrew Jansky. I've been recording this June 2018 at Golden Triangle Resource Conservation and Development Council in Blakely, Georgia. Though I'm soon moving on from this organization, I'd be happy to interact with anyone further that has questions or suggestions about this spreadsheet and utilizing it. My email is andrew.jansky@gmail.com. Typing my last name there so you just have the visual. All right. Thanks again.